we think about our everyday routines a bit differently than we used to, whether that doorknob you're touching or the gas pump or the packaging from items brought home from stores might have COVID-19 or the coronavirus associated with it. Dr. Reena Mehta joins us now to talk about how we handle the cleaning of some of these everyday issues. Good morning, Doc.
Good morning.
All right, so let's talk about, in a general sense, this lives on something that's metal longer than it lives on something that's made out of paper?
Exactly. So there was a recent study published in the Journal of Hospital Infection, which looked at the persistence of coronavirus on different objects and different surfaces. And what they found was that typically the virus can stay active on surfaces for about 2 to 9 days. But which type of surface is really important? So the New England Journal of Medicine recently published that the coronavirus can actually stay active on certain surfaces such as cardboard for only about 24 hours. So those would be things like shipping boxes. But for example, 2 to 3 days on things like plastics or stainless steel, and about 5 days on things that are metal such as doorknobs. So it can really make a difference which surface we're talking about when we think of the persistence of the virus on those surfaces.
So if someone sneezed into their hand and then pumped gas, obviously that would be a bigger issue than if the mail guy in the processing center touched your mail 2 days earlier.
Theoretically, yes, because when we think about boxes and cardboard, it's only about 24 hours. And so thinking about the surface can also be important. The study also showed how quickly the virus can be killed by certain disinfectants. And what they found was using something that has 70% ethanol or 0.5% hydrogen peroxide within 1 minute actually kills the virus. So if you're trying to think about how to disinfect your surfaces, try thinking about at least doing it for about 1 minute, but you really don't need to go crazy trying to disinfect everything for 5 to 10 minutes because it's effective within 1 minute of cleaning those surfaces with your basic disinfectant.
But at the same time, you probably shouldn't use that wipe, maybe that Clorox wipe or whatever that you would have used in the past, and then wipe it off with something else right away. Let it stay there for just a bit, right?
True, exactly. You want to use common sense when you're disinfecting, but you also want to think about how cautious do I need to be? So, all of us are doing a great job with social distancing, but we still have some exposure, for example, going to the grocery store. And so you kind of have to think about, okay, well, what are my risks when I do something like that? So the biggest risk when you go to the grocery store is simply the act of going to the grocery store, because the biggest transmission is respiratory droplets between you and, for example, your neighbor next to you or the cashier. And so, as opposed to actually bringing home the groceries, the food really doesn't contain the virus. It's really the act of being exposed to other people who could actually transmit respiratory droplets.
So should you clean off everything when you get it home, the packaging, or is that overkill?
It's not that it's overkill, but I think if you do really good hand washing, so you get your groceries, you wear a mask, you come home and you really wash your hands really well. If you feel like disinfecting, it's not going to hurt, but the chance of transmission from actually packaged foods, it is very, very low. I think if you disinfect, great, and that's what you want to do. But if you decide not to, then at least once you unwrap everything, be sure to wash your hands with soap for at least 20 seconds. The other thing is you don't want to use wipes when trying to disinfect, for example, your broccoli or your celery, because that can actually then cause more chemicals to go on your groceries as well.
Okay, good advice from Dr. Reena Mehta. Thank you, Doc, very much.
Great, thank you so much for having me.
We are coming up on 8:18, and here's Shelby.